Tonight, person of interest, an arrest in connection with the murder of a CEO, and a manifesto that may reveal the motive. The tip from a McDonald's employee that led to the suspect.
Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old male on firearms charges.
And a weapon police are calling a ghost gun. Inside the sudden regime change in Damascus, as Syrian-Canadians share their hopes.
Freedom is back.
I'm so happy.
Also, the painful burden of out-of-pocket costs for cancer patients.
We should figure out how we can cover those expenses.
Plus, why charities are struggling for salvation from the ongoing postal strike.
This is a significant challenge for us.
And the grand slam of sports contracts.
And Juan Soto!
Covering all the bases of a record-breaking deal.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Heather Butts.
Good evening. We begin with breaking news. Late tonight, New York prosecutors have charged a man with murder in the shooting death of UnitedHealth's CEO. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione was spotted in Pennsylvania and arrested this morning, initially on weapons charges, now also facing one count of murder. He was seen in a holding cell after being taken into custody. Among his belongings, a gun similar to the murder weapon and a manifesto potentially pointing to a motive. Here's CTV's Joy Malbin on the manhunt and what we know about the suspect.
Tonight, an arrest, 26-year-old Luigi Mangione taken into custody in Pennsylvania after a keen-eyed McDonald's customer recognized him from all those photos blasted everywhere on TV and social media and called 911. Police calling him a person of interest in connection with the targeted killing of UnitedHealth CEO Brian Thompson, who was stalked and gunned down. Police found evidence linking him to the crime, including a fake New Jersey ID used to check into a New York hostel before the murder.
Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport. Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person.
A gun similar to the murder weapon, along with a silencer and mask, seen in those police videos tracking the killer's every move.
The gun appears to be a ghost gun, may have been made on a 3D printer, the capability of firing a 9mm round.
They also found a handwritten manifesto slamming American health insurance companies for putting profits above care. Bullets left at the crime scene were engraved with the words deny, defend, depose, similar language used when insurance companies deny claims.
We don't think that there's any specific threats to other people mentioned in that document, but it does seem that he has some ill will toward corporate America.
Mangione had no criminal record, well-educated, well-traveled, a software engineer, and valedictorian at a Baltimore all-boys private school.
It seems like just yesterday that we were freshmen, having tie wars and playing computer games in CT20.
As they combed through his social media looking for clues, he once shared the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski's manifesto that called him an extreme political revolutionary.
Joy Malbin, CTV News, Washington.
Turning now to the dramatic developments in Syria after rebels seized power this weekend. While many are celebrating, there is much uncertainty about what comes next following the end of the Assad family's half-century rule. CTV's Geneviève Boschman reports.
Syrians lined up outside bakeries and the few open shops in Damascus as the capital stirred to life today. This as a transfer of power began. Bashar al-Assad's prime minister met with rebel leaders, agreeing to hand over the reins to a transition government, one which may include groups long designated as terrorist organizations by the U.S. and Canada. But all sides urged state employees, including healthcare workers, to return to work, and banks will reopen tomorrow.
Despite all the challenges and the different sort of divisions within Syria, whether that's politically or even militarily, things are moving in the right direction.
Rebels proclaimed a new day for Syria after they ousted al-Assad, ending his family's brutal half-a-century rule. Today, Russia confirmed President Vladimir Putin himself granted al-Assad and his family refuge. Exiled Syrians in neighboring countries rushed to border crossings, anxious to return home. Thank God the war is over, that Assad's reign is over, says this man who fled to Turkey in 2015. My older brother was imprisoned, and I haven't seen him for 13 years. Crowds have been searching jails notorious for torture and executions, hoping to find loved ones imprisoned by the regime. But few prisoners have been found. There are also signs power dynamics are shifting in the Middle East. Explosions were heard in the area of what was an important army base of the Syrian forces in the country's northeast. No details were released, but Israel has said it had hit missile and chemical weapons site to prevent, it said, the material getting into the wrong hands. And inside the country, Syrians are anxious to know what new rules they will live by. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News.
Syrian nationals, including the more than 100,000 in Canada who fled the murderous regime, have new hope, with many now mulling over a return to their homeland. Here's CTV's Sarah Plowman.
Many never imagined this could happen. A celebration of the fall of Bashar al-Assad, a regime that imprisoned or killed their loved ones and drove them from home in Syria to Canada.
We're so happy that we have a country to live in peace.
I'm so happy because most of my family were in the jail and they dead for their country.
At his restaurant in St. John, life feels lighter for Ahmed Al-Bakour.
A lot of people don't believe Bashar al-Assad left. Thank you, God.
He's from Damascus, but left more than a decade ago. Lunch today is served with a side of hope.
99% people from Syria are very happy right now. And then I hope all the world help us to open all the jail in the Syria.
One of Al-Bakour's relatives is now out of jail, but he doesn't know if his father, who was also thrown in prison, is alive.
And there is the jail very hard.
Since 2015, more than 100,000 Syrians resettled in Canada.
I'm from Homs, so this is the worst city that Bashar al-Assad bombed and killed and destroyed.
There's talk of moving back.
Not in the moment, when things goes back to normal, and we will always be here and there.
Others dream of stepping on Syria's soil for the first time.
I never saw my country before, and I would love to see it.
A lot of uncertainty surrounds the country's future. Many hope through Assad's exit, democracy could enter.
The Syrians need an opportunity to live.
An opportunity to rebuild, they hope, without fear. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, St. John.
The civil sexual assault trial of Just for Laughs festival founder is now underway in Montreal. 9 women allege they were assaulted by Gilbert Rozon and are seeking just under $14 million in damages. He was found not guilty in 2020 on charges of rape and indecent assault. Today, his lawyers claim he had consensual relations with 3 of the accusers, but denies any wrongdoing. The civil trial is expected to run until March. A cancer diagnosis takes a devastating toll on a patient and their family, making it worse, the painful hidden costs of care. CTV's Alison Bamford on the staggering out-of-pocket expenses.
Piece by piece, like a jigsaw puzzle, Daphne Xavier navigated through her cervical cancer diagnosis one step at a time.
Not knowing exactly what would happen, I think that's the most stressful thing, at least for me.
She's cancer-free now and considers herself lucky. Accommodation and travel costs were reduced through community supports, and most of her medication was covered under student insurance.
I can rest assured that I have my medication at the end of the day and I can rely on that. But if I couldn't afford that, I would be extremely stressed.
A new report from the Canadian Cancer Society estimates the average patient will face nearly $33,000 in out-of-pocket cancer-related costs in their lifetime. Chemotherapy and radiation are covered, but some prescriptions and take-home drugs aren't, and patients still shoulder travel costs and lost income during treatment and recovery.
Particularly for people who live in rural and remote communities, the cost of getting to cancer treatment can be astronomical.
Or for those who have to move cities, like Harjeet Kaur, who lives in Edmonton but needed a stem cell transplant in Calgary.
And we had to pay rent in Edmonton and in Calgary.
About 20% of Canada's total cancer costs fall on the patient, amounting to roughly $7.5 billion this year alone, expected to rise to $8.8 billion over the next decade.
When people need to make the difficult decision between these kind of financial constraints and out-of-pocket costs in their care, some do opt to either delay or forego some of their treatment.
Advocates say national drug coverage for take-home cancer medications and caregiver tax credits could help bring some of those costs down. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
The federal government's fall fiscal update will be tabled next week, and this was the reaction today in the House.
They're planning a fall update, but they'll do it in the snow on December 16th. Our message is stop.
Yes.
Stop the inflationary spending.
We will present our economic record in this chamber, and we will talk about the fall economic statement. And I anticipate that you're going to hear a lot about the economic record that we've amassed.
Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland will reveal the economic statement on Monday, just before members of Parliament head home for the holidays. The Prime Minister says Canada will respond to any new U.S. tariffs, citing past retaliation.
So we're still looking at the right ways to respond, but our responses to the unfair steel and aluminum tariffs were what ended up lifting those tariffs last time.
Speaking in Halifax, the Prime Minister says he thinks Americans are starting to realize that tariffs on Canada will only make life more expensive for them. And Justin Trudeau faced his third consecutive non-confidence vote in the House, surviving thanks to the NDP, who today tried unsuccessfully to pressure the Liberals to expand the holiday affordability promise to Canadians. CTV's Rachel Aiello explains.
As businesses gear up to cut the GST from numerous consumer goods,
the word we're getting is make your best effort.
Today, the majority of MPs signaled they don't want the 2-month tax break broadened.
Yes, they're saying.
The only NDP Opposition Day motion of the fall, calling on the government to extend the tax relief, as well as expand eligibility of the $250 rebate to non-working Canadians, was defeated.
We think that tax cuts should be permanent for the working class. They want it to be temporary. We think that seniors and people living with disabilities should be able to get that check. The Liberals don't agree.
The fate of those checks is still hanging in the balance, with no word on if or when the government will make that promised rebate a reality. Meanwhile, the GST break bill is still before the Senate, but it is on track to pass in time to be enacted on Saturday. Though, new analysis today from the Parliamentary Budget Officer warns the tax holiday could cost nearly double what the Liberals projected. That if provinces insist on being compensated the $1.3 billion in revenue that they are set to lose from their portion of the HST. So far, no indication from Ottawa that they intend to cover the whole cost, defending the policy as is.
This is going to be major tax savings, and it's going to provide stimulus for economy, which is very, very positive.
The vote on Singh's effort to expand the holiday affordability package took place right after the Liberals survived their third Conservative non-confidence motion of the fall sitting.
I declare the motion defeated.
Today, Pierre Poilievre pushed a new motion, this time not angling to bring the government down, rather calling on Trudeau to eliminate the GST off of one of Canadians' biggest purchases.
They can stop taxing new homes.
The Liberals will be facing more confidence tests tomorrow. The Speaker has forced all opposition motions to be dealt with so that billions of dollars in supplementary government spending can also come to a high-stakes vote by day's end. Heather?
And we'll be watching that closely. Rachel, thanks. There is little movement on negotiations on day 25 of the Canada Post strike. Frustration is piling up for small businesses, while charities are struggling with a massive drop in holiday donations. CTV's Heather Wright has more.
For 25 days, postal workers have been here on the picket line.
As a worker, I'm just as frustrated as the public is.
Today, the union representing 55,000 postal workers said it presented Canada Post with a counter-proposal to the one the Crown Corporation put forward on Friday. This offer included a 19% drop in its wage demands. The sooner Canada Post steps up with serious proposals, the sooner workers can return to the work they love doing in their communities, the union said in a statement. It was an offer Canada Post quickly rejected, saying it is extremely disappointed that their intent appears to be to widen the gap in negotiations rather than close it. Canada Post says it will review the offer, but adds, "We don't want to provide false hope to impacted employees, small businesses, charities, and northern communities that were hoping for a speedy resolution."
It's heartbreaking, actually.
Pam Wilcox is the owner of Snapdragon Designs in Midtown Toronto. Like most retail stores, the holiday season is their busy season.
We have had to rejig. We're now shipping through local couriers, but we have to use DHL for international orders, UPS. It's costing us double.
And it's not just small businesses. The Salvation Army says its fundraising is down roughly 50%, a gap of just under $10 million.
This postal strike couldn't have come at the worst time. This is a significant challenge for us, especially as we want to get those messages out to donors and receive their donations back in through the mail.
An estimated 12 million items are currently stuck in the mail, and with just over 2 weeks until Christmas, hope is fading that a deal can be reached in time to get those parcels delivered by the holiday. Heather.
So many people and parcels affected. Heather, thanks. Coming up, weather warnings creeping right across the country.
This is actually a good preview to what this winter's probably going to be like.
Hazardous conditions in some parts of Canada. Many Canadians are getting a taste of the cold to come once winter officially hits. Parts of the country are getting hit with freezing rain, ice, and heavy snow. Here's CTV's Alex Carpa.
It's an all too familiar sight for Manitoban Scott Kaler. He is shoveling snow that fiercely accumulated on his driveway over the last few days.
This is actually a good preview to what this winter's probably going to be like.
Up to 20 centimeters fell in some areas, including Winnipeg, making driving conditions tough for many. Several schools and a number of highways were closed in the province.
Well, the system that brought all the snow to Manitoba started in Alberta, tracked through Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and now it's moving through Ontario. So some parts of Ontario are getting into it now, and it may impact even more parts of eastern Canada, but the system isn't even finished yet.
Southern and eastern Ontario are seeing freezing rain, which could extend into Tuesday, with Quebec seeing much of the same later this week. Heavy snowfall with strong winds of over 100 kilometers per hour hit southern Labrador Monday.
This is typically what you see at the beginning of winter.
Climatologist David Phillips says these weather systems throughout the central and eastern parts of the country could be a dress rehearsal for what's to come this winter.
Right now, it's kind of that give and take, you know, it's that opening kind of, you're getting a little of it's almost like sampling the appetizers, and the main course hasn't really arrived.
The hazardous conditions are expected to continue throughout the rest of this week in parts of Canada. Environment and Climate Change Canada is urging Canadians living in those affected areas to postpone non-essential travel until conditions improve. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Still ahead tonight. The Montrealer cashing in on an early retirement. The earliest complete stone tablet inscribed with the 10 Commandments is expected to go for more than $1 million at auction. The 115-pound stone, dating back roughly 1,500 years, was discovered in 1913 during excavations for a new railway line in southern Israel. It has 20 lines of script, but only 9 of the 10 Commandments are displayed. It will go on the Sotheby's auction block. Last year, a Hebrew Bible, more than 1,000 years old, sold for $38 million. Well, a lucky Montreal man is retiring early as a multi-millionaire after winning half of a massive $80 million jackpot.
I feel very good.
Jean Lamartin says he always plays the same numbers and it paid off nicely. The 63-year-old is now planning to travel and spoil loved ones for the holidays. The jackpot will be split with another winner in Alberta. Only one other pair have ever won this record-breaking sum in Canada. Well, still ahead, striking a different jackpot. Breaking down the single biggest contract in pro sports history. A baseball superstar hit it big, landing the biggest contract in professional sports. The Toronto Blue Jays made a massive pitch for Juan Soto, only to watch him sign elsewhere for mind-boggling money. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
A record-setting contract for a baseball player with generational talent. Superstar outfielder Juan Soto from the Dominican Republic has reportedly agreed to a 15-year, $765 million contract with the New York Mets. That's an average of $51 million US a year. It's believed to be the most lucrative contract in team sports history, sending shockwaves throughout baseball.
The fact that it ended up at $765 million is shocking to me.
The 26-year-old turned down $760 million from the Yankees for 16 years. One of baseball's best hitters, last season Soto had 41 home runs, 109 RBIs, and a .288 batting average. At that pace, his new deal would pay him $1.2 million for every home run, almost $468,000 per RBI, and more than $307,000 for every hit.
Glad he's able to take care of himself, his family, and many generations. I mean, that's how much money he made.
It's a huge splash for the New York Mets, one they hope will pay off both on and off the field.
It's definitely going to offer an opportunity for the Mets to justify, the 2.5–3% raises on ticket sales, on luxury suite sales.
It's also a swing and a miss by the Blue Jays. Not only did Soto turn down the Yankees, he also declined a lucrative offer from the Jays.
I look at it from the Blue Jays perspective, and it feels to me like it could have been some wasted time.
Steve Phillips says the Blue Jays were in the mix, but $765 million was likely too rich for Canada's only Major League Baseball team. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Wow. And that is our newscast for this Monday night. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. I'm Heather Butts. Todd and Sandy will be here tomorrow. Good night.